So welcome everyone to the third session of the Prevention Coalition Affinity Group series. We appreciate each and every one of you for taking your time to attend these events. If this is your first, you will still get as much out of it as if you come to all three sessions. That's just how involved it is. We just need your participation to make it work. My name is Derek Newby, and I'm the TTA specialist for Region 6 of the PTTC and co-facilitator for today's service. The South-Southwest Prevention Technology Transfer Center, or South-Southwest PTTC, is based on the University of Oklahoma Norman campus, which serves substance misuse prevention professionals, organizations, and community stakeholders in 5 southwestern states by providing high-impact training and technical assistance. These programs help build the professional and community capabilities required to deliver effective and evidence-based prevention programs, practices, and strategies. The South-Southwest PTTC is part of the U.S. Health and Human Services Region 6, working for Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Texas. This service will be evaluated, and you are strongly encouraged to complete your evaluation to receive your certificate, which you will see at the end. Our disclosure, as you see on this slide, is very complex, but I will pause briefly for those who would like to read it, and you'll be able to download it also with this presentation because we are recording it today. It is important to note that the opinions expressed herein are the view of the PTTC network, and we do not reflect the official position of the Department of Health and Human Services or SAMHSA. I'll pause so you can read it in its entirety. Now, I have the pleasure of introducing your facilitator for this service. By design, an affinity group is a group of people linked by a common interest or purpose. Affinity groups are one aspect of creating a diverse and socially just world. They create the safe space needed for people to build strength and pride, but equally, it's important, are the collaborative efforts between different groups of people towards creating equity for all. Diversity and inclusion within the group impacts the successfulness of the group. It impacts the creativity, and individually, we are water that sustain our communities, but together we are oceans that shape the world. This group of preventionists has achieved that standard. We are oceans that have come together, and now we are working together. Sarah Davis, a subject matter expert around the topic of prevention coalitions, specifically for prevention professionals at the local level, is here to guide us toward our common goal of rejuvenating our coalitions. She brings engaging, rich examples of working in various local contexts over many years that adds important practical aspects to the topic of coalition building for ATOD prevention. With experience that some preventionists may not possess, Sarah Davis is the Associate Director for the Rocky Mountain Public Health Training Center, housed within the Center for Public Health Practices at the Colorado School of Public Health. She leads a multi-dimensional team of specialists. We're honored that she will navigate this prevention ocean for us today. Please welcome her and allow her to guide you in this enriching experience. The light is yours, Sarah.
Thanks, Derek. I feel like I need like a captain hat on now that we're going with this nautical theme of navigating oceans. I love it. So I'm going to ask Richard, if you don't mind launching our poll for us, and we're going to give you a minute to answer a poll question that we'll discuss in a few minutes. So we won't share the results quite yet, but give us some thoughts about, You showed up today to talk about rejuvenating coalitions. How do you know that your coalition needs some rejuvenation? What leads you to that place? So go ahead and mark your response, and then we'll come back to this in just a little bit. All right, well, as you're finalizing your answer to that poll, I just want to say again that it's a real pleasure to be with you today. And as we get started, I want to take a moment to honor and acknowledge that where I'm sitting right now here in Denver is on the ancestral homelands of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, and Ute nations. They are the original stewards of these lands, and I want to celebrate the many contributions of Native peoples to the fields of medicine, mathematics, government, military service, arts, literature, engineering, and so much more. I also recognize the sophisticated and intricate knowledge system that Indigenous peoples have developed in relationship to their lands. I recognize and affirm the ties that these nations have to their traditional homelands, and recognize the many Indigenous people who thrive in this place, alive and strong. I also want to acknowledge the painful history of ill treatment and forced removal that has had a profoundly negative impact on Native nations. I respect the many diverse Indigenous peoples still connected to this land. I honor them and thank the Indigenous ancestors of this place. All right, well, hopefully everybody's had a chance to take a look at the poll, so we'll take that away. And great. So Richard, I'm going to ask if you can close that for just a second, and we'll revisit that in a few minutes. So here's where we're headed today. Thanks again for sharing some of your time with us. We're going to explore some common elements that can cause coalition engagement to wane or to decrease over time. And more importantly, we're going to talk about some strategies to rejuvenate your coalition. So I'd like to propose that for our time together today that we turn our cameras on when I'm not sharing my screen. And the reason I'm asking you to do that, if you're able to, is that it's really a gift for us to be able to connect with each other face to face, even though we're not physically in the same room together. So it's a gift to be able to see your face, your smile, your nodding head, your questioning look, your thumbs up, your waves to your colleagues. So if you're able to, thanks for turning your camera on while I'm not sharing my screen. And that being said, recognize that that's not possible for everybody, whether that's due to low internet bandwidth or distractions that you may have going on in your space that you may not be able to turn your camera on. And if that's the case, I'm going to ask that you let us know that you're here with us throughout the session by using the chat box and the reaction button that you've got at the bottom of your Zoom toolbar. So let's warm up our chat fingers and get ready to engage with each other. I see a thumbs up from Ashley and Frank. Thank you. So post in the chat the city and state that you're joining from and where you would go on vacation if money was no object. I'm looking out at snow and gray skies right now, so I'd love to think about where I want to go for vacation. So tell us where you're joining from today and where you're going to go in this money is no object vacation. Ooh, Sydney, Australia. That sounds great. Virgin Islands, I'm in. Greece, absolutely. We got warmed up with our baklava recipe earlier. Travel to Italy. That's one of my favorite places, Lori. Thanks for joining us. All right, Derek, you might get bonus points for the most creative answer that Derek is going to go to space if money is no object. Excellent. We have folks going to Ireland. Thanks, Kendra. Jordan's going to travel from North Dakota to Cabo. I'm going to guess that the weather is going to be pretty different when you take that vacation. Thanks for joining us. Few folks from North Dakota. Great to have you all here. We've got Benjamin from Georgia who's going to head to Thailand. Oh, and Mike's going to come visit in Colorado. I love it. Good. Well, great to have you all on. So thanks again. And the last thing I want to mention just around expectations for this session is I recognize that you all have a lot of things competing for your time. We were even talking about another great session that some folks were hopping out of around marijuana. So your time is really valuable. It's really precious. And I want to appreciate the space that Derek and colleagues have created for this affinity group. We really need each other and we make each other better. So I'm going to ask that for our time together, please ask your questions because I'm betting that somebody else has a similar question. Share your challenges, be real about those so that other folks know that they're not alone. And absolutely, let's celebrate successes because we can all use some inspiration in our day, and being able to hear what's working for one of us may give somebody else an idea of something else to try. All right, so you answered a poll, and let's take a look at those poll answers. Can we pull those back up, Richard? So the reason we joined today, how do we know that our coalitions need some rejuvenation? So almost half of you said people aren't showing up to the coalition meetings. That's how I know that engagement may be waning a little bit. The next most common answer were that coalition members weren't taking action. That no one talks during the meeting is another way. So maybe they're coming, but they're awfully quiet. Coalition, what coalition? So we have a few folks with that answer as well. So thanks again for coming today. That tells us a little bit about what your coalition is experiencing. I want to hear about you. So we're going to use our Annotate feature, and Lori put some instructions in the chat for how to use Annotate. If you take your cursor up to the top of your Zoom toolbar, you should see a little pencil that says Annotate underneath. And you can click on that, click on Stamp, and then click that yellow star to let us know how you're doing. So how are you feeling about rejuvenating your coalition? Where's your fuel tank? Are you down at the bottom of this rectangle in the red zone? Are you running out of gas, feeling like you're running on empty, maybe feeling a little discouraged? Or maybe you're up towards the top of that rectangle in the green section that you're feeling energized about this new challenge. You're feeling full of ideas. So go ahead and put your stamp somewhere on this fuel tank rectangle and let us know where you are. So it looks like we've got most of our folks right now that are hovering somewhere around the middle of the tank. We've got a few that have a full tank. I'd love to have about 2 of you unmute and share a little bit more about what's going on with your coalition right now and how are you currently feeling about things?
I can go.
Excellent.
We have a small coalition. It's comprised of people that work for the Department of Health, the school district, the captain of the state troopers in that county. But the problem is that they have a ton of resources, but they don't offer those available to the coalition as a whole. So I feel like sometimes our meetings are just spinning tires with absolutely no definitive action.
Thanks, Michelle. Let's hear from one other person.
I'll go. Prior to COVID, we had a very good active coalition that regularly attended meetings and things, but at the coalitions, it just seemed like they were expecting a report from us, and not very many of them were interested in helping with the action part of moving forward. They just wanted to hear what we'd done and then tell us what they wanted us to do moving forward, rather than less help. And then since COVID hit, we tried to get it going again, and Sierra tried to have a couple meetings, and the only people that attended were us. So that's where we're at.
Excellent. Thanks, Jess. And although it's fun to hang out with ourselves, we're really looking for engagement. So I saw nodding heads from a few of your colleagues as you were explaining that. So I think you're absolutely not alone with that experience. So let's talk about what this looks like, about how we rejuvenate a coalition that's waning or when engagement is going down. And to be honest, I felt a little overwhelmed personally by this question about how do we rejuvenate a coalition? How do we build back a coalition stronger? So I did what a lot of us do when we don't know the answer. we phone a friend, right? So we call on those other colleagues who know what they're doing, who have been doing this work for a long time, to help us feel unstuck and to think about ideas for what does this mean to rejuvenate a coalition. And here are the friends who I called. They represent folks who have extensive experience working in coalitions in the areas of tobacco control, education, marijuana, youth advocacy, social justice, collective impact, and a variety of things in between. So lots of years of experience and expertise among these folks. And I asked them, why does coalition engagement wane? Why does it go down? Why does it decrease? And a few very clear common themes emerged. That folks don't know the why, or that the why isn't clear. And that could be that the coalition's purpose isn't clear, the vision for why the coalition exists, or it could be that it's not personally clear for individuals who have been engaging in the coalition about what their why is. And that's really connected to number 2, that individuals in the coalition may feel uncertain about what their role is in the coalition. Do you really need me here? Do I have something that I'm bringing? Do you need my skills or resources or networks that are important to the coalition's success? And then that's connected to number 3 of, do I have an opportunity to influence the coalition? Do I have some power in the coalition? And if the answer to any of those questions is no, or I'm not sure, then an individual may be likely to disengage from the coalition. So let's look a little deeper into each of these, and we're going to have some time to share ideas with each other as well. Starting off talking about the why. So let's look at this short video together.
How do I know? A lot of people, when they think of the phrase, how do I know, they always want to put the what behind it. How do I know what I'm supposed to do? The question that you really should ask is, how do I know why I'm here? Because when you know your why, your what becomes more clear and more impactful. If you know, like for instance, people. The question that you really should ask is, how do I know why I'm here? Because when you know your why, your what becomes more clear and more impactful. If you know, like for instance, people know that I do comedy, but that's what I do. My why is to inspire people to walk in purpose. So I can do comedy, I can write books, I can be in a movie, because all of it is motivated by my why. In fact, I have a new web series out called Michael Jr. Break Time. We probably just did the 6th episode. It's on YouTube. So every single Wednesday at 3 o'clock, we drop a new episode on YouTube of Michael Jr. Break Time. What it is it's me. I travel around the country and I do stand-up comedy, in case you didn't know. And in the middle of my comedy set sometime, I'll stop and just talk to my audience. And we've been filming this, and it's pretty cool. So we're in Winston-Salem. I'm going to show you a clip from Winston-Salem. And I'm just talking to this guy in the audience, and he tells me that he's a musical instructor at a school. So I was like, all right, you're a musical instructor. Can you sing? Let me hear you sing a song. So this is what happened at the last episode of Michael Jr.'s Break Time. Check it. So you're a musical director. Cool.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let me get a couple bars of like Amazing Grace. Can you do the first part of that? Go ahead.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Wow. That bro could sing. You know what I'm saying? All right. Now, what you give me the version is if your uncle just got out of jail, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. I'm just saying, let me see the hood version real quick, if you know which version I'm talking about. Just see if that exists. Let me see what you got.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved like me. Was lost, but now, right now I'm found, was blind, but now I see.
Okay. Here's what I want you to catch. The first time I asked him to sing, he knew what he was doing. The second time, he knew why he was doing it. When you know your why, your what becomes more impactful because you're walking towards or in your purpose.
All right, not bad. So who's next? Who's going to sing for us? So I like that. I like that video because it does emphasize, I love what he says at the end, when you know your why, your what becomes more impactful. And so that's what my friend Mark said too. When I asked him this question about why people get disengaged, and he said that often people get lost in the mundane and the details, and that happens to all of us. And when we're not connecting with our why. So when we're talking about the why, we're really talking about two things. And that first thing is the why of the coalition. That's the vision. So why does the coalition exist? Is it because it's a funder requirement, or is it something more? What's the why that your coalition is working for? During session 2, for those of you who are part of that affinity discussion, we talked about why even have a coalition? Why not just do the work ourselves? And we talked about things like networks and resources and perspectives that our coalition partners bring. And we talked about how we're stronger together, that we value involving the community because we prescribe to the belief that nothing about us without us. And as my friend Christina Welter mentions here, it's important to connect with coalition members to see, are we on the same page about why our coalition exists or what we're working for? Are we clear about the coalition's vision, and are coalition members clear about the why, the importance of the coalition? The second part of the why is on an individual level for coalition members. What's their individual why? So we can think about this like tuning our dial to radio station WIIFM. Many of you have heard that phrase before, what's in it for me? So if we think about what's in it for our coalition members, what do they get out of this? As Amy and Heather mentioned here, making sure that we're clear about what's in it for our coalition members and asking them, what's important to you? We all have a ton of demands on our time. And I hear Crystal saying in the chat, capacity. We've been pulled in all kinds of different directions right now. So why is it worth it to someone to participate in this coalition effort? What's in it for you? So part of our filter about how we decide what we're going to participate in is to explore our own personal why or our organization's connection. Why is it important for me to be part of this effort? And how do I benefit from that? Which brings us to our second theme that came up. As we're thinking about what's in it for me or why do I stay involved, especially given demands on our time, we're thinking about what's my role in this coalition or in this effort. So it feels good to know that we're bringing something to the table, that I have something to contribute, whether it's knowledge or expertise or a professional network or a connection with the neighborhood that is important, and that I have an important role then within the coalition. So do your coalition members feel clear about what they bring, about why they're important? And do they have a clear role in shaping what the next steps are and the decisions that are made by the coalition? So I'd love to hear an example from somebody about how you're playing to the strengths of a coalition member. So somebody who's part of your coalition, maybe it's an individual, maybe it is an organization. How are you playing to the strengths of your coalition members or coalition partners. And so this really speaks to what Tracy's talking about in this quote. So we're all coming to the table with some strengths. You can unmute and share an example of how they're playing to a strength that a coalition partner brings.
I can share. Our coalition, we kind of encompass all aspects like suicide prevention and youth coalitions and just different areas of substance use prevention. But we had the idea to offer a grief class in our community, and we utilized one of our religious affiliates on the coalition to help facilitate and lead that, just because we feel like he has a great personality for it and is a really good listening ear. So that's one way that we kind of got an idea off the ground and had someone delegated to kind of see that to the finish line.
Great. Thanks for that example. How about another one? A way that you're playing to the strength of a coalition partner.
Well, just to stir the pot, I mean, I also belong to a coalition in my city as well. And one of the things we do, the people that come like from a specific area of the community, whether it be like law enforcement, we try to allow them to design some projects or produce some events that they feel are going to be supported by their sector of the community in order to ensure it's going to get some backing in the community.
Excellent. Great example, Derek. And Jamie, you had one too.
I was going to share, I have a coalition here in Laredo, Texas. It's a drug-free community support program. And we incorporated this grant into an existing coalition so we wouldn't have to form another coalition because there's so many other coalitions in the community. Anyway, in order to do that, I had to go before the existing FACE coalition members and propose the project and indicate that it would be a grant so that we would be officially under a nonprofit without having to apply for the 501c. And of course, everybody was excited about that. The challenge recently has been that my membership is a strong membership because of the fact that we've been a coalition for, I would say, over 12 years. The focus of the new grant, which has been the last 4 years under drug-free communities, has been a challenge. And the challenge has been to bring the stakeholders to the table and to come up with projects that would fit our goals and objectives of the coalition. So with that said, what we're coming up against is getting the involvement from the original stakeholders to jump on to the DFC coalition and being involved as the way they used to be with the FACE coalition and helping us to promote the advocacy against drugs and alcohol amongst our youth. So that's been our challenge, but we're moving forward. Another thing that we kind of faced up with recently is I'm the volunteer by doing I'm hosting the coalition as the chairman, but the program itself has lost 2 coordinators within the time that it started. One from the initial date that we started, which was about 2 years ago, and then the other one just recently within the last month that left. Our West Care is the foundation that formed the application for the grant. So what I'm doing is I'm helping in the transition until we get a new coordinator, along with being the chairman for the coalition.
Yeah. Boy, you bring up so many important themes in what you just said. Transition is that word that stood out to me a lot, of needing to transition a coalition and how to keep people engaged throughout that process. And I may have mispronounced your name. Is it Jaime?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay,
I've been called Jamie, so it's okay.
Probably, but I prefer to get it right. So thanks so much for sharing that experience.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So when we think about individuals disengaging because maybe they don't see a role for themselves, that can sometimes come about because of the way that we've structured our coalition, either on purpose or inadvertently. And I think Jaime gave an example of one way that that can happen when a coalition gets absorbed into a larger effort, for example, that it could be that the reasons why the original coalition members got involved, it's a little more diffused, or it's a little more distant, perhaps. So when we think about the way we structure our coalitions or our meetings, thinking about the opportunities that individuals have for influence. So do they have the opportunity to influence the decisions that are made by the coalition? Or do they feel like, as Mark is saying here, that they perhaps get tokenized, or that they're isolated and just showing up just to be there, but not necessarily having an influence over what's happening in the coalition? So thinking about what we're doing as coalition leaders or facilitators to create spaces where everyone feels welcome. What are we doing so that individuals who are in the coalition know their value? That we're asking them, why are you here? What's interesting for you about this? Where do you benefit? What's a role for you in this coalition? What do you bring? And how do you have the power to influence decision making? So we've covered 3 reasons why coalition engagement wanes. I'd love to hear some other ones, and I think a few ideas popped into the chat as well. So if your coalition membership has dropped off, or the level of engagement from coalition members has gotten lower, why do you think that's happened? And I want to open up my chat here. So feel free to unmute or drop it in the chat of reasons why your coalition engagement might have decreased. So Michelle, you said that you think that some of the members don't understand how much knowledge or experience they bring to the table. That's a great point. So sometimes we're not able to see what it is that we're bringing. And so having that we might be hesitant to engage. So having somebody external point out what strengths and assets we're bringing to the coalition is helpful. Crystal brought up capacity issues. People are tired. Yeah. Say more.
Some of the people that we deal with in our coalitions, they are more action oriented. So if we're going too slow for them and we're not showing action in a pace that they think works for them, then sometimes they'll start dropping off until we're actually really doing something and are more active.
Yeah, excellent. So that can be also helpful to know when somebody wants to engage. So maybe they don't want to come to every meeting, but when it's time to do something, I'm interested in being involved. Yeah, Edward mentions that some engagement decreases due to missing engagement opportunities. Can you say more about that, Edward? What are some of those missing engagement opportunities?
Yeah, so I don't work with a specific coalition. I work with a lot of different ones. And what I have noticed is that sometimes certain individuals in the coalition are so ready to get to work that instead of affording opportunities for others to join them, they take the work on themselves, or within a limited scope of individuals, instead of kind of offering to see if there are other parties that might be interested in helping or being involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great example. I think that probably resonates with several of us. Ashley's mentioning COVID. You know, we've had to move to virtual. We do sometimes lose engagement because of that. Some can meet in person, some can meet online. Ashley also points out some barriers around meeting times, that it can be challenging to find a meeting time that's going to work for most.
I would like to say something. I'm in a coalition that sometimes the leadership seems a little bit, I feel like the word would be tone deaf. Like they don't seem to recognize that their role as a leader is also to facilitate leadership in others. And they're just really, really intent on steering and driving the bus. And they are missing those clues of people that are sitting there who would also like to participate in that leadership role, but they just miss it. They're just not aware that they're not allowing that space to open for other coalition members.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're getting like the high five amens from Lori and Derek over there. So yeah, and that really speaks to some of the power dynamics that can show up either because of a position of power, a formal position of power, a role or a title that someone holds, or just a personality that someone's dominating the airspace, and it can limit engagement for others. Yeah. So we have no shortage of reasons why people might have disengaged over the past couple of years. So I want to share one other comment that was made by another one of my phone a friends, which resonated for me. And that was from Caroline, who mentioned that it's a little bit of a framework of a mindset shift for some of us who are in the facilitation or leadership positions within coalitions to recognize that some of the disengagement that happens is a very natural transition piece. And Jaime mentioned that when he was speaking before, that it's natural for there to be changes in participation in a coalition over time. And if we view participation transition as part of the planning, as part of the process, as part of the growth of a coalition, and can be thoughtful about planning what Caroline calls on-ramps and off-ramps for coalition members to move in and out gracefully, as she mentioned. So really thinking about how are we creating that space that makes it easy for new people to engage, and also giving some space for folks to move out of the coalition as they need to. So I want to mention that piece as well, that not all reasons why coalition engagement wanes is necessarily negative. Some of that can be very organic as well. So let's talk now about what we do about it. Where do we go from here? So if we think about the word rejuvenate, it comes from the Latin root re, which means again. So if you think about words like replace, restore, renew, revive. And the second part of the word comes from juvenis, which is Latin for young. So rejuvenate, by definition, means to make young again. So I'd like to take a little reflection moment, a pause, and I invite you to turn off your cameras if you'd like, to close your eyes if you're comfortable, and to picture something in your life that you did and then stopped doing, or lost interest in it, and maybe we're just going through the motions. And then you got rejuvenated. You started doing it again. So this might relate to a workout routine, a relationship you were in, a job, a hobby, your faith, a meditation practice. So take just a minute to picture that thing that you used to do, and then you stopped or lost interest and were disengaged, and then you got rejuvenated. What caused you to re-engage? What was it that changed? So go ahead and open your eyes and turn your cameras back on if you're able to. And you'll see that Lori has added a link into the chat for a Padlet. So go ahead and click on that link. And I'd like for you to add into that Padlet some of your thoughts about what caused you to re-engage. What was it that changed that helped you re-engage with whatever that was? that you stopped or lost interest in. So we're going to take about 3 minutes here for you to add on to the Padlet. I'll play us some music. Go ahead and start adding your comments to that Padlet link. What changed? What caused you to re-engage? Thanks for all these thoughtful ideas. So I'm going to share my screen and look at a few common things that have come up here. So as folks were thinking about what led them to re-engage or reinvest, rejuvenated their interest in something, that for some folks it was something external. So it was connecting with other important people, community, other external folks kind of helped re-energize them. For others of you, it was more of an internal process of you found that something was lacking, or you were reflecting on something and realized that you were missing something, or that something, you had a realization that something needed to change. It's really touching, the person who commented about getting back into exercising and getting physically fit for their grandchildren. So that's a great external motivating factor, and even some photos to go along with it. So, all right. So I'd like you to keep this in mind as we head into our breakout room activity. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to go into a separate Padlet. So another link is being dropped into the chat, and make sure you click on that link before we head into our breakout rooms. And so on this Padlet, the instructions for this breakout room activity are going to be over here in the left-hand column. And so you're going to identify somebody in your room to be the facilitator. I'm going to suggest that it be the one of you that has the first name that is closest in the alphabet to the letter A. So we'll jump right in, find that facilitator so you can jump into your discussion quickly. And then your group is going to pick one of these next 3 columns, number 1, number 2, or this should say number 3, one of those main themes for reasons why folks might be disengaging because from the coalition. So pick one of those issues that your group wants to discuss and read the insights. These are from my Phone a Friend folks underneath. So take a minute to read through some of those insights for the one column that you chose, and have a discussion with your group. Which of those challenges feels true for your coalition? And most importantly, what steps might you take to rejuvenate your coalition? So we can take some inspiration from the Padlet that we just did and from the ideas within your group. And so the last step here is, as you have ideas, you're going to click on the plus sign. You're going to add your group. So maybe you're in breakout group number 8. And you're going to add your ideas down here. You can change the color if you want to be creative and publish that. So we're going to come back together as a full group and share a few ideas that each group came up with. So feel free to record some of those rejuvenation ideas on the Padlet. Are there any questions before we head into our breakout room? All right, Lori has put the Padlet, the new Padlet link into the chat. Go ahead and click on that, and Richard will put us into breakout rooms. Welcome back, everyone. You had some good discussions in your groups.
Yes, we did.
Good. Ashley's got a big smile. Excellent. All right. I think we have all of the groups back. So let's hear from group number. How many groups did we have, Richard?
We had 4.
4. And Lori's got love notes for her group in the chat. All right, let's hear from group number 4. What strategies did your group come up with for rejuvenation?
Actually, we had 5. Sorry about that.
All right, well, we'll still start with group 4 just to mix it up.
Okay, Lori, we're group 4, right? Okay, so sorry, and my dog is squeaking a toy in the background. That's super professional of me. We just had a lot of good conversation about how to involve people that maybe feel like powerless in the coalition, or the coalition isn't running like it used to be. And Lori had really good ideas of sending out like a survey to survey other members to see what do they want out of this coalition? How much are we willing to commit to? Is a monthly meeting too often? Does it need to be every other month? What do we want as far as agendas? Do we want agendas? Do we want it out within 24 hours or a week before the meeting? Just some clear guidelines to see what we're working with and what everybody else expects. There was just some talk that like a co-chair and a chair weren't really leading the organization and it had been falling apart. So kind of just clear definition of roles and what's that looks like for the coalition.
Thanks, Jordan and Lori and the rest of your group. Sounds like some great discussions. How about group number 5? Breakout room number 5.
I don't know what group I was in. Maybe we were in 5. My group was pretty quiet. I have no idea. Anyways, am I in the wrong? Is somebody else group 5 and I just don't know it?
I'm not sure what group we were either. I'm obviously did not pay attention to the number. So.
Yeah, let's have you share, and then Rachel, if you were in a different group, let's have you share next.
Okay, so the group that I was in, whichever number we were, we decided that we wanted to focus on number 1, the why isn't clear or compelling to me. And the idea that we came up with was inviting members into a coalition who have had meaningful experience that would add to the why of the coalition, and then also inviting multiple generations. So for instance, if we were combating drunk driving, just to have multiple generations so that each generation was heard and they could work together.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing, Jess. Rachel?
And we had a really good conversation as well. And some of the issues we had, we were discussing more of option number 2, where I don't have a clear role, especially like I mentioned in my youth group, it's more of a school club setting versus a coalition, and there's very little ambition that I've run into with these students, and so they don't have a clear role. They don't have a particular why they are there other than school credit maybe. And then I think it was Ashley, she came up with a really good other reason where it seems like some of her coalitions that she has seen runs into where she gets the vibe where they're just there for the grant money. I have to kind of run into a little bit of that as well. So.
Yeah, and we had a couple folks comment on that on the Padlet about the money part, and that the challenge has been either people being there for the money, or that it's a challenge to keep people engaged, perhaps because there's not funding to sustain the work.
Right.
I think we had 2 other groups. What other ideas for rejuvenation did you all talk about? Are they so mind-blowing that you want to keep them a secret?
What I was sharing with Rachel in our group was that for our area, what we did was we kind of had to think outside the box, especially with the COVID. And I was fortunate enough to set up an agreement with our two major school districts. one in inner city and the other one is more outside the normal city limits. And I was able to have an agreement with their counselors, head counselors, to give us a format so that we could give presentations, topics of presentations to them on opiates, marijuana, alcohol. But what I did was, instead of me choosing the topics, I went before the counselors and I asked them for ideas. And so they gave me a series of 3 or 4 ideas. And what I would do is then look for presenters. And I was able to find a really good network. It's called the Opiate Response Network here in Texas, which offers an array of topics. Of course, their main focus is opiates, but they can do all kinds of topics, and they don't charge. And they provide the format, they provide the presenter, they even can provide you the Zoom link at no cost, as long as it's for the purpose of providing information and dissemination about drugs and focusing on youth specifically as well. Anyway, so that's what we're doing. We're hosting our 3rd series this coming March, the 29th. And I'm adding to the school districts some local charter schools as well. And so that's a new venue for us. But I'm also including some nonprofits that are using or have their focus is youth, working with youth. So that's another way of kind of giving me a little bit of in with some youth groups, so that we can start forming our own youth activity council for our coalition.
Excellent. Good. And I'm hearing some ideas exchanged in the chat as well around surveying folks to find out what's needed, what they see as priorities. Always a great start. So I want to share, as we come to the end here, I want to share just some additional insight that I heard from speaking with one of my friends, Heather, who works in the field of youth engagement. So we were just talking about young people. And she said that what her team is hearing from the young people they work with and who are part of their coalitions is, I just missed 2 years of my life. So COVID has had an amazing impact extraordinary impact on all of us. But if you think about, for young people especially, what missing 2 years of your life feels like, it's like an eighth of the time you've been alive, right? If you're a teenager. So the reactions to what that feels like and the reactions to dealing with that lost time really run across this spectrum of, from young people who are feeling overwhelmed to the re-entry and are needing some more empty space and perhaps disengaging or not engaging at the same level that they were involved before, to another end of the spectrum of folks who are feeling like they've missed out on all this stuff and are now ready to re-engage at a really high level. They're wanting to do everything, and all kind of individuals in between. So if we think about this from a coalition standpoint, how can we make sure we're offering a spectrum of engagement opportunities or re-engagement opportunities to match what re-entry might look like, not only for young people, but also for adults as well? So really using this time as an opportunity, or using this as an opportunity to think about, maybe we structure our coalition meetings differently. Maybe it's not just about having a coalition meeting, but there are different ways in which to engage. So I'd love to hear some reactions from those of you either who work with young people or who work with adults, whether or not this resonates as you see how people are kind of re-entering what they're engaging with. Does this ring true to you? What are you seeing in terms of youth engagement post-COVID?
One of the things I am seeing at my main youth group is if they're not missing class, they don't want to have a whole lot to do with it. And they don't really want to have to spend their after school hours doing anything because they're not getting to miss class.
And
Unless you mention the word field trip, then that's a possibility. But the question is, are we going to get to miss class? So it's right now is a very difficult time for my youth group, my main youth group, trying to get them to be interested and do things outside of that.
And does that feel different, Rachel, than pre-COVID?
Well, I wasn't in it pre-COVID. I'm only 9 months in, but from what my colleagues tell me, it's different.
Yeah. How about others?
Feel free to open your mics and share.
So we're in a I work in multiple counties and multiple coalitions, but the county that I reside in, we're in a fledgling situation with a brand new coalition trying to bring people to the table. And we have people that are coming in and out. We haven't really got a firm core established yet, beyond, again, like somebody else mentioned, a bunch of us, and not so many of the community, but they're there. But we did a fun, just nothing about it, just a cookie exchange kind of a party. And that idea is so refreshing because it just took everything else off. We're not going to have those business discussions. We're just going to do something fun that's a coalition and building and engagement so that we might become more friendly with each other. And I liked that. And I think that is a great thing to do. Just take everything off the table and just have a fun day.
Yeah.
I like that, Lori.
Yeah, and Susie has some thoughts in the chat as well, again, about that ebb and flow, the transition point that we're in, the flexibility that we need to have, perhaps having a different view on things that we have sometimes just to connect and it's not business related, or we're being really upfront and clear that folks don't need to come to every meeting in order to be engaged or involved, that we're offering other options.
Well, I want to give credit to Susie because she's actually one of those people who came up with the cookie exchange for their fledgling thing. So I wanted to make sure I said something because it's a great idea, Susie, and I'm glad y'all did it.
Sarah, I think it's really important, and I'm glad that you asked that question. Even with adults, it's like we have to rebuild relationships now, because for the last 2 years we've been taught to socially distance from each other and not really like engage, and it's like we have to get to know each other again, and that's going to mean spending some time with your coalition members and gaining their trust all over again to get to the point where they feel comfortable engaging again.
May I share something?
Please, Ashley.
So I know you brought this up about youth, but with what Derek just said, this honestly, I'm doing a lot of trainings. I'm doing a lot of Zoom meetings. This was the first Zoom meeting that there was ever a breakout room. And I think for the coalitions who are doing Zoom meetings, for the connection, I think that the breakout rooms would be a great idea for people to have better connections and do things together, group work together, just little things, because that was the first time I've ever done one since I've been in in this field. And that was great. I think that was great. So maybe that could be a different idea too.
Thanks,
Powerful, Ashley.
Yeah. Good. Well, I'm conscious of the time, and I want to make sure to get to share this resource with you before we conclude. This is a great new resource available from the PTTC, and I think Lori's going to drop the link to it in the chat regarding effective coalitions. And one thing you'll notice about these 6 elements of effective coalitions is that 3 of them speak to the things that we talked about today. Having a clear goal or vision, that's the why. Making sure coalition members are clear on their roles so they can actively participate, and that the coalition is structured in such a way so as to encourage belonging and power sharing as well. So would love to hear from you as we come to a close in the chat, some of your next action steps. So commit to the other peers here on this affinity group. what's something that you want to either keep doing, improve on, start doing, or stop doing as it relates to your coalition engagement efforts? So drop those thoughts in the chat for us. What's something you want to keep doing, improve on, start, or stop doing?
More vocal in my coalition. Okay, Michelle.
And some more non-obvious stakeholders. Defining roles and expectations. Bringing back that
coalition newsletter.
PA meetings. We'll keep these coming in, and I want to pass it to Derek as we continue to look at our commitments of what we want to keep doing, improve on, start or stop doing. I'll let you close us out here, Derek.
These are incredible. Please keep them flowing. Keep doing, sharing ideas, improving on, encouraging others. Yes, we don't do this alone. Thank you, Lori. Okay. Connecting. I saw someone said they were on a newsletter again. Newsletter are powerful ways to keep your coalition informed. I just love all this feedback, and I appreciate you guys for sharing and opening up and providing us this feedback. And I appreciate you too, Sarah, for the work that you do and for guiding us today. We're just swimming in information. It's just it is an ocean out there in prevention, and so for so long we many of us these last couple of years maybe have been adrift. And now to see each other and know that each and every one of us is like a life raft for each other, and we can reach out and we can talk to each other again, and we even in some place we can come together again. So that's powerful. Things are getting better. I often say prevention is the one job I would do even if I didn't get paid, and it's not a cliche. I know a lot of you feel the exact same way. See, I have 6 children. And I wanted them to grow up in a safe and drug-free community. That was my why. I grew up in a household where my father was an alcoholic, and it tore our house apart. And I never wanted my children to have to deal with anything like that. And more importantly, as I did work in the community and got involved and started caring about the kids in the community, I didn't want them to have to go through that either. So that was my why I did what I've done, and why I've been able to do it for over 20 years now, because it is the driving purpose. I know why I'm doing what I do. It doesn't matter which coalition I'm doing, which group I'm working with. I know why I'm doing exactly what I'm doing, and it makes a difference. And if you are luckily enough to know your why right now, be sure that you share that with your coalition members, share it with your community, so that you can help them find their why as well. See, Martin Luther King once said, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter." Well, prevention matters, and we cannot remain silent. Even though there have been some changes that have taken place and tragedy has occurred, we cannot remain silent. We must be vigilant in making sure that we continue to move forward in our efforts. I thank you for joining us for this third session of the Prevention Coalition Affinity Group series. March 10th does not have to be the end of this journey. The South-Southwest Prevention Technology Transfer Center is based on the University of Oklahoma Norman campus and serves substance misuse prevention professionals, organizations, and community stakeholders. And we want you to contact us for training and technical assistance. We are a resource for you. And we want to help you help your programs grow. We do this by empowering you to make your communities capable. We help you improve your capacity to deliver effective and evidence-based prevention programs, practices, and strategies. And this service will be evaluated. As you see, there's a QR code there. If you have a telephone, you can just put it up to there right now and you can do your survey. Or you can type that link right there and you can go to the survey that way. And if we can have the link posted in the chat, then you can go to it that way, because your voice matters. We need to hear from you. And we need to know what you thought of these programs so that we can continue to provide these type of programs. The service, of course, is recorded as well. And you'll have access to this program afterwards. You'll be able to go to a link and rewatch this program. You'll be able to download the slide set as well for your own use. We just ask you to make sure you keep it intact so that you can maintain the fidelity of the program and your feedback. If you would like to share your email addresses or contact information, you can do that with each other now in the chat. When we were in the breakout rooms, I encouraged my group to share their information. This does not have to be the end. I emphasize that. Look around, because you are surrounded by resources, a vast ocean of resources. You are likely to see each other in the future in different trainings, but we encourage you to stay linked. Every one of you are great. Every one of you are great because you serve. So share your passion with your coalitions and your communities, because the time is always right to do the right thing. Again, I thank you, and I put us back in the hands of Ms. Wanda. Yes.
I was hoping he was going to turn the time over to me, because I was thinking. Some of you have been in training before this and now sat through this one, and we thank you for doing that. And I am an advocate for taking good care of your body. So make sure you take some time for yourself after this. Stand up and walk around, get your eyes away from the computer for at least 20 seconds. I heard 20, 20, 20. Every 20 minutes, look 20 feet away for 20 seconds. So anyway, thank you all so much for joining us today. We will have the recording out next week and the materials. Today's Thursday. Next Thursday, you'll receive the materials, the recording and the PowerPoint. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll put my email in the chat. It's wwest@ou.edu. And thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful afternoon.